Lanjut ke bahasa dan energi. Bahasa dan energi ini untuk variabel-variabel yang sama dengan bahasa kalian bisa langsung gunakan data tersebut. Jadi di sini variabel aliran 10, dan di bahasa energi ya 10 juga. Kemudian
Okay, so now I will talk about the gas liquid multi-phase flow regimes. Okay, so we've already talked about pure liquid flow, including the pipeline operation as well as the pump operation, and we also already talked about the gas flow, including the compressor. Okay, so now the question is how if for some specific application, there are a mixture of gas and liquid inside of a same pipeline segment. Okay, and before I continue with the regimes and then the formula and so on, I would like to show you a brief video about some of the actual application about this gas liquid multi-phase flow, because this is actually a very real problem that that requires a lot of computation, requires a lot of troubleshooting in especially in chemical plant as well as in oil and gas industries. Okay, so let me switch to where's my Chrome. Okay, so this is actually in YouTube. So from Schlumberger, so it's a oil service company, drilling service company, but as well as producing some of the software for flow assurance or a very expensive software to simulate gas liquid flow in oil and gas producing fields. Okay, so before I start the video, I just want to check whether the video is visible and the sound is clear to you as well. Okay, let me check.
Slugging happens in all production systems and can cause costly production upset.
Okay, so is it visible and can be heard?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, before the video, I would like to give you some introduction probably. So this is a typical, we can say, typical oil and gas production, especially if it's in subsea or in offshore, whether it's a deep sea or shallow. Okay, it could vary much. So in Indonesia, I think we have a lot of different applications. Shallow operation is maybe if you're familiar with oil and gas producing facilities in North Java. Okay, North Java. So it's in the Java Sea, so near Pantura. It's a shallow operation, maybe only in the range of 10, 20, 30 meter of depth. Okay, that's one example. Or maybe if some of you are coming from Balikpapan, East Kalimantan, there are a lot of operation previously from Total. Now it's taken over by Pertamina. A lot of shallow operation. So at the end of the river before it cross to the sea. So maybe again in the order of 10 to 20 meter. But I think Indonesia also has some experience with deep sea exploration, like Jangkrik, or maybe if you heard about Masela, which could in the order of hundreds of meter in terms of the offshore pipeline. Okay, once we consider the well producing, it could even go further to 3 kilometer underground of the seabed. Okay, so this is where the fluid mechanics becomes a real challenge. And there's a specific branch of chemical engineer that only talks about a multi-phase flow. Okay, some people call it flow assurance. So if you heard someone called as a flow assurance engineer, that means usually they're coming from chemical engineering, only handling with the fluid mechanics, especially for a combined gas and liquid system. Okay, because it's challenging, usually something that is called a slugging. This is only one big example, okay, one big problem. happen in a real world, it is called slugging. I'll show you the illustration. Of course, there are other problems with the two-phase flow, such as hydrate or wax, okay, or what else? Choking and so on. Okay, so but one common theme usually when we're dealing with oil and gas operation in subsea is a slugging, because you can imagine that what can be found under this wellhead. Okay, so this yellow part here is a wellhead where you where you drill the well, and then once it's being open, then the combined three phase actually oil, water, and gas can go to the wellhead. Okay, because in the reservoir there are at least three main compounds: the oil, the gas, and the water, which has different characteristics. Some gas is gas, water and oil is liquid, but it's not miscible. So sometimes it's called two-phase or even three-phase pipeline. Okay. So of course, because the density is different, gas is light, so it tends to go to the top, and then oil is second, somewhere in between, and water is at the bottom because it's the heaviest. And if it's not well combined, if it's not well mixed, then you can imagine that some of the pipe section could be blocked or could be plugged because of the accumulation of some of the heavier compounds, for example. Okay, so this is the typical infrastructure. Again, from a lot of different wells, it's collected at the well header, and then it is sent, for example, to the processing facilities. Okay, the processing facilities can be onshore, such as shown in this example. So maybe 5, 10, or 20 kilometer to the surface. It is sent to the onshore facilities. But if it's too far to the onshore of facilities, then it will be sent to the floating processing facilities, FPSO, for example. So it's a big vessel, a big ship platform, offshore platform. Okay, maybe a lot of things can be found in Natuna, for example. So all of this well header is connected with a pipeline, and then it will be sent to the level of the seawater, because this is where the platform is located. Okay, maybe this is a good example of a platform. So there will be a vertical pipeline, which is called as a riser, that can be very troubling when we are having gas and liquid at the same time. Okay, so that's my initial introduction. So let's see the video, okay, about the slugging and how it can be controlled, how it can be prevented, and so on.
Slugging happens in all production systems and can cause costly production upsets. There are several different slug types. Terrain slugs occur at the base of a riser or steep incline.
So this is a terrain slug. If you look at this picture, then the brown black bubble over here represents the liquid part, so represents the crude oil parts, where it is heavy compared to the natural gas. So the natural gas here is the clear one, that it will go to the top very naturally because of its light density. Okay, but sometimes the liquid can be accumulated at the bottom part of the riser, okay, which is called as a terrain slug. So this accumulation of liquid can be called a slug or slugging, and this causing a problem, because if you imagine the mass balance of this operation, it is not a steady state operation. So let's say you have a constant production from the well, let's say 10,000 barrel per day, and then 100 million cubic feet per day of gas. Okay, but because of this discrepancies in the characteristics, the gas can always go steady state to the top, but the liquid it's transient. Okay, it's transient. That means it's dynamic. It's not a steady state. Sometimes it cannot flow to the top, so the well keep producing, let's say, 10,000 barrel per day, but the receiving facilities or the platform may not receive the same 10,000 barrel per day, or even zero at some time, because it's accumulated at the pipeline. Okay.
Where liquids build up and they can't be lifted. Turn-up slugs occur when there's an increase in rate through the system, which sweeps accumulated liquids to a separator or slug catcher.
Let me stop over here. This is a turn-up slug. So once in a while, the subsea pipeline can be full by liquid, and because of the maintenance, because of the some natural phenomenon, the liquid will be sent, can be sent to the platform receiving facilities, but at a much higher flow rate than the typical steady-state production. Why? Because maybe the accumulation of the 1 or 2 or 3 months of the previous operation, where a lot of accumulation at the bottom of the pipeline now can be sent to the platform receiving facilities. But you can imagine that now it doesn't receive 10,000 barrel per day as my previous example, but it's much higher because of accumulation that now can be sent to the offshore platform facilities, for example. So you can imagine it's like a flooding where the pipeline receive a lot of water, and the first separator installed at the platform now receive too much water at the same time. So it's what called as a turn-up slug, because the slug comes at one time at a very large capacity that cannot be controlled efficiently. Okay.
Liquids to a separator or slug catcher. Hydrodynamic slugs are caused by shear at the gas-liquid interface between the different movements of gas and liquid.
Dynamic slug over here, it's a natural slugging occurrence where the pipeline may not be as horizontal as we would like. So you can imagine that the seabed is not flat. Okay, the seabed is not flat. So of course it has to follow the seabed. Sometimes you found a valley, sometimes you have to go to the higher elevation, and because of those different elevation, now again, because different velocity for the liquid with the different velocity with the gas part, so some of the slugging very dynamic moves forward and backward in the pipeline. Okay, and this is also related with the next slugging. So once in a while, so like every 6 months or every 1 year, the oil company will have a maintenance. Okay, will have a maintenance to clean all of this pipeline. You don't want this accumulation of oil at the bottom of the pipeline, so they will send something like called as a pig. Okay, literally pig, PIG. It is sent to brush or to force the liquid sent to the downstream process. Okay, so let's see.
Pigging slugs are caused by the accumulation of liquid
This is
swept
called
through
as
the
a pigging.
pipeline ahead
This is
of the
pig.
pig.
Okay, and you can imagine that once the pig is sent from the upstream, it will become clean. Okay, it will become clean. But the consequence of that is, of course, the accumulated liquid will be sent to the downstream part. Okay, so now you have accumulation of liquid that is stuck inside of the pipeline within months or years of operation.
Knowing when these are likely to occur and how to mitigate against them are critical considerations for a safe operation. How can slugging be predicted? The PipeSim simulator identifies slugging conditions and provides estimates of slug size. But individual slugs can be tracked in detail using transient simulation with the Olga simulator, so slug volumes and dumping time can be used to design facilities appropriately.
So you can see over here again, this is a real world application where you have a network of pipeline. You can see in this example, maybe at least we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 wells, okay, and some of the manifold or the collecting facilities before it is sent to the platform. So for undergrad, of course, we only talk about one segment of pipeline. You can say that it's a bit complicated, but in relatively terms, it's much simpler compared to this network of pipeline that we can find in actual chemical plant or in oil and gas producing facilities. Okay, because you have one problem at one well over here, then it will change the dynamic of the pipeline because it affects the pressure profile or the pressure balance to the other wells. up until the platform. Okay, so that's why this can be modeled using a powerful software such as Olga or any other flow assurance software. Okay.
Design and operational strategies, such as adding multi-phase boosting, can be examined to minimize the effects of slugging. Using the Olga and PipeSim simulators, you can test various design options and gain an understanding of how best to operate the system.
Okay, so that's an example from Olga. So don't worry too much because, of course, it's not part of the undergrad curriculum because it's and it's common for that problem in anywhere in the world. I haven't found any undergrad curriculum that explain about multi-phase flow. But what we need to explain to you is the basic principle or the basic phenomena, but not directly the tutorial of using this kind of software. Okay, but so the expectation is you understand about the different regimes that we have, about the interaction between gas and liquid, what could happen when it is mixed together. Okay, so only those kind of introduction. Okay, but we will not expect to have a complex calculation for this application because it's actually solve using a computation. Okay, so that's my introduction. So later maybe I'll give some other practical application or practical example in gas liquid flow. Okay, so let me continue. So gas liquid multiphase flow is very commonly found, observed in chemical process industry, and gas liquid mixture such as steam and water or gas and oil is transferred through pipeline from one point to another. Okay, so it can be flow in a co-current way or in a counter-current way. Okay, so one of the examples. So of course, previously the co-current operation is the oil and gas pipeline, because in this case that you can imagine the very long pipeline. You have the vapor, and then you have the liquid that flows at the same direction. Okay, that's the co-current means gas and liquid flows to the same direction, which can be found in a pipeline or even in a plug flow reactor. Okay, in a plug flow reactor, you can also imagine that this is a plug flow reactor where you have a bed of catalyst at the main part of the reactor, and then let's say you have a two-phase reaction where it is sent to the co-current direction of a reactor. That's also applicable in some of our application in chemical engineering, but that's not correct. So it's part of the co-current. Okay, for the counter current, the obvious example is of course the distillation. Okay, that's the obvious example, or I think absorption will be a better. Okay, I think absorption is a better example. So absorber, you have absorber. Okay, absorber, and absorber is a unit of operation to separate gas using a solvent, using a liquid solvent. Okay, one of the most common application of absorber over here is CO2 absorption. Okay, let me finish the flow sheet first. Again, we have to understand how the balance or how the dynamics of the gas liquid will be occurred inside of this pack column. Okay, this is called as a pack column, column filled by packing. Okay, could be up to 20-30 meters, let's say in this case, to separate CO2. Okay, the example again, if we're still talking about natural gas, okay, if we're still talking about natural gas, you can find it anywhere in the world, a very standard facilities to remove CO2 in the natural gas. Okay, because the CO2 is contained. Let's say you have CH4, the methane component of the natural gas, and then you have the CO2, the impurities that has to be separated. because of the corrosivity, because it reduced the heating value. Okay, so let's say the natural gas contains CO2. Okay, so in the absorber, natural gas will be sent at the bottom of the absorber. So that's gas, and then we have a solvent. Okay, solvent to remove CO2. Usually some kind of amine solvent. Okay, alkanol amine and so on. So it's a solvent, and the CO2 will be reacted with the solvent. Okay, so the concept here is now you have what is called as a solvent plus CO2, okay? The rich solvent, because the CO2 is dissolved. Okay, so absorption is based on solubility. Okay, based on solubility. So we need to find a solvent where CO2 will be dissolved to the solvent. Okay, that's why the selection will consider a lot of type of chemicals, but usually it's amine because they have a lot of solubility of CO2. Okay, so now we have solvent plus CO2 at the bottom, and meanwhile at the top we have what is called as clean gas. Okay, you can say a clean gas because the CO2 has been removed. Okay. How it can happen? So you can imagine it's a counter current gas and liquid flow. Okay, it's a clean gas because let me change my color. You have the gas coming from the bottom. Okay, up until it exits at the top of the absorber. Again, it flows upward because it slides. So the gravity will determine which goes upward and downward, right? So the solvent over here will go downward, okay, because of the gravity, because of the heavier density. So along this packing column, there will be some interaction. There will be some interaction about liquid and gas, where the CO2 will be transferred to the solvent. And it's a very practical application of a countercurrent gas liquid flow in the system in a chemical plant. Okay, so again we have to design in such a way that the diameter is correct, so that the velocity of the gas and the velocity of the liquid is suitable as well. We don't want one phase to overpower the other phase. Okay, so we expect that the gas free of liquid go to the top, and we expect the liquid free of gas sent to the bottom. But that's not always the case, of course, if it's not designed properly. Why? For example, if we select the wrong diameter, the wrong distributor, okay, now the liquid becomes too overpowered. Okay, the gas cannot go to the top. Okay, let's say now the green arrow over here, the liquid part coming from the top, it flows downward at too high of a velocity. It creates too much of a resistance for the gas to go upward. Okay, so maybe some of this gas cannot go to the top, and some of them will be forcefully sent to the bottom because of the high velocity of the liquid. So that's one occurrence, and the other extreme could also happen. Okay, where the gas is just too fast, too high velocity. Now the liquid is carried over to the top. Okay, that's called a liquid carryover. Okay, when the hold on. So liquid carryover happen where we expect the liquid to go to the downward, but now because of the high velocity of the gas, now it goes to the top. Okay, so another problem, we call it liquid carryover, because high velocity of the gas that force the liquid, and the liquid cannot is not able to goes downward. Okay, so a lot of different application, a lot of different challenge, a lot of different complexity of gas and liquid flow. So the key takeaway from this is we understand that liquid and gas has different density and different viscosity. And because of those different density and viscosity, we will expect different flow profile from those two phases. Okay, we cannot expect every time that all of this gas and liquid will be combined together and will be steady state as a mixed compound to the destination. We expect we want it to happen, but we can't that's not always been the case. Okay, because maybe in some case, even in a pipeline, the liquid is too much that it affects the continuity of the gas flow. Okay, and at the same time, the gas can be too dominant where the liquid now will be stuck at the bottom of the pipeline with different velocity. Okay, so that's my main expected takeaway for you. Okay, to understand the different dynamics of this gas and liquid. Okay, and then you should be able to explain what is the name of those regimes, and then how it will look like in the pipeline. So that's should be your first priority for today's. Okay. So the main difference between a single phase and a multi-phase flow is the flow pattern or the flow profile. Okay, and the pressure drop calculation. And that will be explained to you in these next two lectures. Okay, so today I will explain about the flow pattern, and if the time is not enough, the pressure drop calculation will be explained in Tuesday. Okay, so there will be case where the liquid phase is more dominant, and there will be other case where the gas phase is more dominant. So we have to calculate separately, individually, what will be the pure liquid velocity, what will be the pure gas velocity, and in those cases, how it will affect the other phases. Okay, and the friction energy loss. Okay, again, another problem over here is generally the energy loss in a multi-phase flow is much higher than in a single phase flow. Okay, so for example, in the last session, if I try to remember, let's say you have a sizing criteria of 0.1 kPa per meter, if I'm not mistaken, 0.1 kPa per meter. Okay, that's for a single phase liquid, that's possible. For a single phase vapor, that's possible. But once it combined into a two phase, usually it will increase even to up to one degree of magnitude. Okay, so 10 times higher, sometimes even more than 10 times higher than a single phase pressure drop. Okay, so again, just remember that a multi-phase pressure drop will in the order of one order of magnitude higher than a single phase pressure drop. Okay, so first we have to understand the behavior of this gas liquid multi-phase flow depending on the flow profile through a channel. Okay, so we can say that as a regime. Okay, for a single phase, usually we are satisfied to classify the regime only three regime: laminar, turbulent, and transition, somewhere in between. That should be able to explain the generic behavior of a single phase. But for a multi-phase, those three regime is not enough. Okay. Now we have to introduce more regime, okay, up to 5 or up until 7 different regimes, where one phase could dominance the other phase. Okay, so if the mixture of liquid and gas flow through a straight pipe, then the flow pattern possibility are limitless. Okay, it depends on the different velocity. It depends on the physical route of the pipe. Okay, it's not straight vertical, it's not straightly horizontal, it's diagonal, or it's up and down, and so on. It of course affect the flow pattern of the liquid and the vapor. Okay, the example over here is if you have a riser over here, and then again because of the seabed, then it has to go downward again, and then it goes somewhere like that. Okay, let's imagine that's the seabed. Okay, a lot of valley at this subsea pipeline. Okay, and you can imagine that once the liquid is at the lower level, this is the higher risk that where the liquid will be accumulated. Okay, that's what it means, that the flow patterns could be very limitless. Okay, so when I talk about different regimes, even one segment of pipeline could have different regimes. The first horizontal, the first region, you could say, has a regime A, and then the second region, because now it's almost like a vertical, it has a different regimes. And then the next one, again, different regimes, because of it has the same fluid characteristic, but has a different pipeline route, okay, and elevation. So yeah, that's why it's we need a computation device or simulation to help us to calculate this kind of calculation, because the complexity is limitless, okay. But in a real operational condition, where we have to simplify, where we have to generalize the trend, the flow patterns are simplified into 7 types, okay. So be aware of these 7 types, okay. And what does it mean? How does it look like? Which phase dominates the other phase, okay. So this is the 7 different regimes, okay, starting from a dispersed flow up until the plug flow, and somewhere in between there will be a slug flow. Again, remember that this is the big problem in two-phase flow, slugging, as we see in the video, okay. So if it's a pure, it is a liquid dominant phase, if it's a vapor dominant phase, sometimes it's not a problem. Sometimes the problem becomes where we have in the transition, where it changes all the time, okay. So yeah, in terms of the two-phase flow profile, the 7 regime will be found in this horizontal channel. Horizontal channel means it's a horizontal pipeline, okay. So there will be 7 generalized type of regime, okay. Whereas in the vertical channel, it's only classified as a 5 channel, okay. We will see the 2 dimension illustration, and also I think I have one short video as well, okay. But the generic transition, okay, you can say that it depends on how the gas phase velocity, okay. If the gas phase is too low, okay, it becomes bubbly. That means this is the lowest gas phase velocity, right? So this is a liquid dominant. This is the liquid dominant regime. Okay, why is it liquid dominant regime? Because we know that this is the lowest gas phase velocity. So of course this is the liquid dominant regime. Okay, and for the very high, okay, very high gas velocity, of course this is the gas dominant regime. Okay, this is the gas dominant regime, where the liquid almost doesn't contribute to the overall dynamic of the pipeline. Okay, so this is the gas dominant regime, and the other 2 up until 6 regime, that's somewhere in between. Okay, it's can be evenly distributed or can be unevenly distributed because of the transient condition. Okay. Okay, so this is the 2D illustration, but before I go to that, let me open another short video, okay, for you to make it more interesting and can be understood more easily. One quick note, please focus on the so this is the video from University of Ottawa, okay. We'll see how when we increase the gas velocity, it changed the regimes of the flow, okay. But my note is to forget about the music, okay, because this is a dance music, and it could disturb the message from this video, okay. Let's see, it's only 2 minutes video. Okay, so this is the channel where they put in their laboratory, try to manipulate the flow to get into different kind of flow regimes. Okay, remember that this is the 5 regimes in the vertical Okay, in the horizontal we have 7, but in flow regime, in vertical we only have 5 regime, from bubbly, capped bubbly, slug up until annular. Again, bubbly is the liquid dominant regime. This is where the gas flow is the lowest. Okay, and then annular is the opposite. This is where the gas is the most dominant one because of the high velocity. But in between we will have some capped bubbly. Okay, and we have a slug. This is what is called a slug. The big bubble, okay, the big bubble, but it's not steady state, so it's not found in any segment of in every segment of the pipeline. In this example, we only have 2 slug at the bottom, at the top. So the receiving, again, imagine the receiving platform, okay, the receiving tank will not always receive slug at all time. So that's the dynamic characteristic. At one time it will be a slug form, but when they receive this distance between the slug, maybe it's a bit similar to bubbly. Okay, that's why it's very dynamic. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is bubble. Okay, bubble because so at this point this is all liquid. Okay, when you see the bubble, okay, when you see the bubble, that's where this is where the small velocity of gas will looks like this in the mixed pipeline. Okay. Okay, you increase the gas velocity, capped bubble. You increase the gas velocity, it's a capped bubble. It's still you can say that it's still relatively stable. Okay, what I mean by stable is you don't have a different phenomena at different time. Okay, so at one time maybe the liquid fraction more or less remains the same. The liquid velocity and the gas velocity more or less remains the same. That can be said as a steady condition, and it's a well, it's a bit complicated compared to a pure phase pipeline, but it's still okay in the sense that it's a steady state condition, that the velocity remains constant from the start up until the end. Okay, but when we have a slugging, that will not be the case. Okay, that's the bubbly. Sparse bubbly flow increase the gas velocity. Then bubbly, you can see that the size of the bubble becomes bigger. Okay, the size of the bubble becomes bigger when the velocity is increased. Okay, but it's still relatively steady state operation. Okay, before it forms the big slug, when it becomes transient or non-steady state operation. See over here, even the left part of the pipeline and the right side of the pipeline may not be evenly distributed. Okay, because of the different interaction of force could be different at one wall up until the different side of the pipeline. Okay, now you can see a slug flow. That's the slug, a big bubble, but we have over here it still behaves almost like a sparse bubbly. Okay, but sometimes we will get a big flood where the slug size is bigger than usual. Okay, this is called a turn flow. This is an annular flow. In annular flow, it's better actually than slug. Why? Because again, it's almost like a steady state operation. We know that the gas velocity now is very high, and it separates. If you see that we can have 3 films, okay, one close to the wall, and then in the middle, and one close to the other wall. Okay, so this is where the flow can be stratified. All these 3 layers may have different velocity. Okay, so maybe the center will have the highest velocity, while in the close to the wall it's much lower. So that can be found in this kind of annular flow. Discuss an illustration if the distributor is used with different distributor. And if you remember my previous explanation about two-phase reactor, okay, or even an absorber, this is what I meant by good distribution. Okay, again, this is part of chemical engineer's job to make sure that the liquid and the gas will distributed as what we want or as what we expected. Okay, because when we choose different shape of distributor, the shape or the profile or the pattern of the flow can be different. Okay, so that's the end of the show. So you can see here the slug again. This is what happens in a riser of a pipeline. Okay, two slug even can combine into one big slug. Over the time, it converts into one big slug. So yeah, it's very dynamic. Okay, so hopefully you get a sense about the different regimes that can be found in the pipeline. Okay, any question before I continue? Any question or it's clear?
Sir, so the what do you call it, the slug, that's itu like kumpulan of gas gitu, sir? Or liquid
Yes.
gas?
So over here that's the slug, right? It's called slug. So it's an accumulation of a smaller bubble. It's an accumulation of smaller bubble, but it becomes a larger and larger and bigger and bigger and bigger, and that's when it's called as a slug.
Okay, sir.
Okay, so in the bubbly again, if you remember the video, that's the small bubble. The small bubble is the vapor. Okay, small bubble is the vapor, and the base is the liquid. Okay, over here, that's the slug, the accumulation. Okay, that's the slug. That's the slug. And in the annular, remember annular is where we have a high velocity of gas. So in the middle, that's where the gas will be mostly can be found at the highest gas velocity. Okay, so in this one, gas velocity can be much faster compared to the liquid velocity. This is the liquid part. Okay, and the liquid velocity may be smaller compared to the gas velocity, so it becomes another dynamic operation. Okay, because it's not completely steady state. Okay, so this is for the horizontal. You have two more regimes that cannot be found in vertical. In vertical, what you have is a bubbly, slug, churn, wispy, annular, up until annular. Okay, now you have more about the stratified and the wavy. Okay, which is not found or which is not observed in vertical. Okay, but hopefully now you get it's easier for you to see this picture. Bubbly, still the same concept. We have liquid at the bulk of the pipeline, that's the liquid, and we have the small vapor as a small bubble. Okay, in the annular or even a spray. Okay, in spray, okay, this is also a new regime that can be found in horizontal but cannot be found in vertical. Okay, so maybe over here it's already, you don't found any liquid. Okay, almost all of them are vapor, because the liquid droplet is sprayed evenly to the all segment of the pipeline. Okay. And only looking at this picture, you can see where is the trouble. Okay, where is the trouble? So just look at the visual. Plug flow could be a trouble because it's not completely steady state. It's not completely stable. You can see that there is a different characteristic at different segment of the pipeline. Okay, so again, segment 1 up until segment endpoint could have different characteristic, and you also have to remember that this is a flow. Okay, so the plug will move along the way gradually. Okay, so every segment is a function of time. Okay, they will have different characteristics as a function of time. And the bigger problem will obviously be found in the slug. Okay, again, this is why slugging is really prioritized to be prevented. It's like a wave, okay, and sometimes it's a small wave. Okay, sometimes you have a big wave, and it's not good for operator. It's not good for engineer because it changes all the time. Okay, it changes all the time. Okay, let me continue first before. But if you have any question, please just open your mic. Okay, disperse flow. Okay, see the 2D illustration at the top. Okay, it's called disperse. It's called disperse if the liquid present in the flow as well distributed. Okay, it has to be well distributed. Okay, and in this one, the gas phase has bigger role than the liquid phase. Okay, so again, we can say that the bulk phase over here is a vapor. Okay, but the liquid is just like a dispersion. It's like a spray. Okay, but evenly distributed. Okay, evenly distributed. So if you look at the microscopic flow regime, maybe it will look like that, but it's dominated by the gas. Okay. So it can only be called disperse when the fine granule size are small enough and roughly the same size and homogeneous. Okay, that's when it's called as a disperse. Okay, it has to be same size. It has to be homogeneous. And then you have an annular flow. So this is somewhere in the transition. Okay, it's not purely gas dominated. It's not purely liquid dominated. Okay, but what happened is a liquid form thin layer, okay, or thin film around pipe inner surface, while gas flow in the middle part of the in the higher velocity. Okay, so it's interesting. Okay, that's why the possibility is limitless. You have the velocity, the vapor at high velocity, and then you may ask, why is the liquid? I get the point if the liquid is at the bottom, right? Because this is a heavier compound, so gravity will put the liquid at the bottom. But actually, there will be some specific combination that could make the liquid now wet the surface of the pipeline, but the middle part is by the liquid. If you question why, then again, this is a I will not talk in detail, but it relates with the momentum balance. Okay, it relates with the momentum balance inside of the pipeline, because at this pipe wall, okay, at this pipe wall, you can imagine that the velocity of the solid is 0. Okay, because the still part of the pipeline doesn't move. Okay, the still part of the pipeline doesn't move, so the solid velocity is equal to 0, and that contributes to the momentum distribution inside of this pipeline. So we expect the volume to be max at the top, at the center, sorry, and it will decrease gradually to the top wall and to the bottom wall as well. Okay, so again, it has a lot. It affects greatly by the momentum balance, because at the wall we have a solid velocity as 0. Bubbly flow, again, this is when the bubble is well distributed, carried by liquid, okay, or by itself because of its properties. Because again, we expect that the vapor is light, so the vapor will be at the top. Okay? So it's quite similar to dispersed flow, but in opposite way, because the continuous phase is now the liquid. Okay? So the big part over here is the liquid. Stratified, again, that means it's separated clearly. Okay? It's separated clearly from the liquid phase to form a two-phase layer. Okay? Now the liquid layer which flow in the bottom part of the pipe, and the gas layer which flow above the liquid phase. So that's the liquid, that's the vapor or the gas. Okay, and it could have different velocity. Okay, remember that the VL and VL and V vapor may not be the same at all time. So some of them will be left behind. Okay. Okay, now it gets more trickier and trickier before it forms a slug. Okay, it's almost like a stratified flow. So the liquid and the gas is already separated naturally by the density. Okay, liquid layer of course flow at the bottom, and vapor is at the top. But now it's not as homogeneous as the stratified flow. Okay, so because it's not homogeneous, it's a bit wavy. Okay, it's a bit wavy, not as smooth as in the stratified flow, because the liquid flow is now disturbed by the gas flow. Okay, and therefore it appears that the liquid travel as a wave in flow direction. Okay, and again, remember that it's very affected as well by the route of the pipeline. Okay, maybe it follows the ground level. Okay, which is up and down and so on. And this is, I think, the last, oh no, second to last, slug flow. Wave is becoming bigger, and the wave continuously fill the pipe, then breaks. Okay, that's the problem. It fully fill the pipe, then it breaks. Okay, it fully fill the pipe, then it breaks. Then it fully fill the pipe, then it breaks. And the dynamics characteristic change all the time. The pressure correlation change all the time. Okay. That's why it becomes sluggish and the flow is unstable. Okay, so that's the keyword. It's sluggish and it's unstable. Okay, which is a problem. Okay, which we would like to prevent. And last is the plug flow. Okay, this is the plug. Okay, this is what is called as the plug. It's the accumulation of the smaller bubble. Okay, it's the accumulation of the smaller bubble. So the liquid phase is more dominant than the gas phase. So this is obviously the liquid, that's the slug, the accumulation of the bigger bubble. Okay. And as if the gas phase is some sort of plug inside of the pipe. Okay. So plug or the vapor. Okay. Any questions about these different regimes? Any questions?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
So what differentiates these regimes? Meaning, is it the flow rate or is it the velocity of the gas in the liquid?
Yep.
Why are there different regimes?
Yeah. So the big difference is the velocity. That's the starting point. Okay. So we have a map to help us determine where are we in this flow rate. Okay. So sorry for the mistranslation over here. So to the bottom that we expect the gas to be faster. Okay. So the first driver of this different regime is the different velocity of the gas compound and the liquid compound. Okay. So of course it also affected by the vapor fraction or the liquid fraction. Okay. So vapor fraction. Okay, sorry, I'm really struggling to write over here because the stylus is has a problem. Okay, vapor fraction. Okay, vapor fraction means let's say if I put the vapor fraction as 1, that means I have 10% of a vapor and 90% of a liquid. Okay. In another example, if I have vapor fraction of 70.7, for example, that means I have 70% of a vapor and 30% of a liquid. So these two interacts or link together. Okay. So of course, with a higher vapor fraction, it will affect the pure liquid velocity. It will affect the pure gas velocity. Okay. And usually we will have this kind of two-phase flow region map, okay, to help us determine where is the transition, why we get into this region, and so on. Okay, so as you can see over here, this is a flux. Okay, mass flow flux. Okay, mass flux rate. Okay, mass flux. It's kilogram per second, but also related with the square area of the pipeline. That's why it's called flux. So it has to be consistent with my previous explanation, but the endpoint may be different for different pipeline, for different fluid. Okay, so for example, let's say that if I work somewhere in this region, okay, if I work somewhere in this region, that means all of these are occurring at low gas velocity. Okay, all of these occurred at low gas velocity. Why am I sure about that? Well, just look at the y-axis. This is all happen in a small gas. Okay, see the subscript, that's the gas, and this one is a subscript for a liquid. Okay, so somewhere over here I'm working with a low gas flux velocity, and I think this is the most obvious one. Okay, what's happening inside this region? Okay, I'm still working at low gas velocity, but I already work with high liquid velocity. Okay, so this is where the liquid dominant phase, and if you remember, it's consistent with the previous explanation that this is a bubble flow. Okay, the problem now is if my liquid velocity is not as fast as this anymore, let's say because the producing well is declining. Okay, if the example is from the oil fields, the oil fields production is declining, maybe it goes to the slug. Okay, again, if you live somewhere around Riau, maybe you remember your childhood where the oil production is very, very huge, but now it's declining because of the reservoir and so on, because of the reservoir and so storage in place and so on. Okay, so along the time, maybe because of the decrease of the oil production from the well, it shifted from a bubble flow regime. Now it shifted to the slug regime, because the gas is still more or less the same, but what we have is a decrease in in gas flow rate. Okay, so that's one example. Another example, so this is the opposite. So here we are working at low liquid velocity. Low liquid velocity. Again, this is the opposite. Now we are working initially for a gas fill. Okay, gas fill. Initially, we are over here in the annular phase because we have a high velocity of gas coming from the well. But over the time, the gas producing field is declining, so we may be shifted to the churn part, okay, to the churn regime. So that could be one possible explanation, changing in the flow rate, okay, or even changing in the composition, changing in the vapor fraction. Of course, it will affect this condition of the fitting inside of this regime map. Okay, so if it's another example for the absorber, if you remember the absorber one, of course it's a different dynamics between the liquid and the gas. Okay, you have the liquid from the top, you have the gas from the bottom. When we somehow has to adjust the flow rate for one of the flow rate because of the pumping problem, for example, or any fault in the pipeline and so on. Of course, it could change the position of this regime map. Maybe from the annular now it shift to the churn because of the lower gas, or maybe even now it moved to the wispy annular because now at some problem you get into a higher liquid velocity. Okay, a higher liquid velocity. So from your initial point now you go into this wispy annular. That's the possibility is that's why it's almost limitless. So this is just an illustration. The limit may not be exactly the same with this line. Okay, maybe for some different gas and oil, it will be slightly shifted to the left part. Okay, but you get the idea that when we try to classify the 5 or 7 position, this is usually what happens. Okay, starting from the bubble flow, the pure liquid, starting from the annular, pure vapor, the slug, it must be contributed quite significantly by the liquid. Okay, at a relatively small gas. Okay, why? Because when we increase from slug to the higher gas velocity, we actually can avoid this slug condition. Okay, so that's why maybe the if you remember again the pipeline, okay, the subsea, that's the riser. Okay, that's the riser, and we previously has a slugging problem at the bottom of the riser. This is where the slugging happen. Okay, so this is our initial point, the slugging. It's very common for an oil and gas producer to inject a gas over here. Gas lift, okay, it's called gas lift. Gas lift. That means the oil company install a compressor and install a pipeline to reflow the gas. Okay, they supply the gas over here so that now what happens over here? It shifts the balance inside of this regime map. Okay, because now we flow pure gas over here, it actually increase the flux gas velocity. Okay, so that's what may be done over here by now from slugging I end up with this region. I end up with this region which is an annular, which is good for my operation. So yeah, I think that's some of the example for this different dynamic of the regime. Okay, any other question?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah.
If if we already know like the certain velocity until a slug occurs, why don't we just like why don't like the people use not that certain velocity or other velocity,
Okay.
or is it like an apa uh, kayak pasti slugnya bakal terjadi or gimana sih?
Okay, so it's a good question. Okay, if we know this much about two-phase flow, why the same problem keeps happening? Okay, so that's the big question. Because a lot of uncertainties are found in application. Okay, what's the uncertainty? The biggest one is of course the reservoir. Okay, that's the single biggest uncertainty in oil and gas operation. Okay, before we build this facility, of course there will be some preliminary drilling. Okay, there will be some preliminary drilling. Maybe they drill the well adjacent to the production well. Okay, and then it turns out that the composition over here is not the same with composition over here. That's happening a lot of time. Okay, so when this preliminary drilling is used for design, okay, we use this data for design. We use this data for design, so the engineer, the EPC company, the engineering company, all design, all select the diameter so that this slugging can be avoided. Okay, so they play around with this map. Okay, now I select the pipeline diameter that will give me somewhere in this region, for example. Okay, but then when the production actually happening, there is a difference between the characteristic of the gas from well 1 and well 2. Okay, and then they drill another well with another characteristic and so on, future expansion and so on. So that's happening. Okay, that's happening. The problem is the consistency between the design phase with the actual operation phase. Okay, so that's one case. Second phase is the declining pressure. Okay, declining production and declining production and declining pressure of the well, and that's will always happen at all time. Okay, we try to produce oil and gas at least for 20 to 30 years, and you can expect at least in the after 10 years or after 20 years of operation, the pressure of this system must change to a lower number, because what happens in this what happens in this production is, you can imagine that this is actually a big reservoir, right, where you have a gas, you have oil, you have a liquid, and then we keep producing this gas, we keep producing this oil. So of course, along the time, the pressure of the reservoir will decrease over time. Okay. Pressure of the reservoir will decrease over time. The production flow rate capacity will decrease over time. So that's when the initial design condition doesn't match with the current needs. Okay, so again, example, Mahakam, I think in East Kalimantan, the Balikpapan one. 20 years ago, it was completely different. Okay, they don't have a lot of slugging problem because they produce a lot of gas, because at that time the reservoir is still full with gas, the pressure is still high. But then after 20 to 30 years of operation, now it's depleted. Okay, that's the word, depleted. And because of this depletion, the velocity change, the pressure change, even some water now end up going to the well. Okay. Previously it was a dry gas, but now let me change the color. Okay. Let's say that you only left up with this amount of gas after 20 years of operation. So what happens is, at this condition, maybe now the layer will already change, oil already depleted as well. What you have over here is now a lot of water. Okay, liquid water. Okay, so what ends up going to the well is now a water. Okay? That's very common. Okay, that's why I said to you that this is actually a very high salary job for chemical engineer as a flow assurance engineer, because of this complexity. Okay, how to avoid slugging, how to maintain the correct production profile, and it's not taught in the undergrad, but it will be taught in the master or even in the professional training certification, I could say. But yeah, that's some of the example that I can give to you. Okay, any other question? Okay, let me continue then. Where are we? Okay, so multi-phase flow problem example, I already explained about a slug. Okay, hopefully you get the idea, not completely understand, of course, but you get the idea of a slug. Hydrate is a crystal. Okay, try to Google it. It's a crystal. It's a crystal. Okay, now I'm really annoyed by this writing because of the problem. Crystal, it's a interaction between CH4, methane, and water. Yep, correct, water at low temperature. Okay. Yeah, if you're interested later, you can find a video about hydrate formation. Okay. Now it become three-phase flow. Okay, because it's a crystal. Okay, crystal means it's a solid. Okay, you have a solid, liquid, gas in a flow. Okay, happening at low temperature. By low, I mean less than 20 degree, C, 10 degrees C, or even minus low temperature. Okay, that could form a hydrate. Okay, which is a crystal, and it plugged the pipeline. Okay, so it has to be predicted at which temperature the hydrate will start to occur. Okay. Wax. Okay, wax is a very common problem for crude oil or even for refinery. Okay, if you remember the refinery in Indonesia, Balongan, Cilacap, Balikpapan, Dumai, Pelaju. Wax is a very common problem. Okay, why? Because crude oil consists of a lot of residual components. Okay, starting from C1, and then we get C8 as an octane, as a gasoline. We have C12, C18 as a diesel. But then when it goes to C30 plus, C40 plus, it becomes a waxy component. Okay, and what happens is if we have a wax inside of the pipeline, of course the wax will plug the bottom part of the pipeline. It becomes waxy. Okay, it's like asphaltene. You can imagine it as like an asphaltene. So it has to be avoided. So it has to be predicted. Okay, so that kind of thing. Pigging, I already talked about this in the video. And then transient operation, that means one well is not operating at one time, so we have to start operation from well A, and then after it's ready, we start up again. So the pipeline network, you can imagine, it's changing all the time. Okay, it's changing all the time. The complexity, the changing flow rate, the changing phase. So again, that's why if you go to HYSYS, I think there are some example about that. Okay, so let me check. So it's not a powerful device, but it gives you some starting point. Okay, so HYSYS is not dedicated for this kind of multi-phase flow. It's able, but it's limited. Okay, for a more powerful one, yeah, the most powerful one at the moment is the one that I showed you at the first video, the Schlumberger Olga software. Okay, so but HYSYS, I think there are. Okay, Aspen Hydraulic, if you're interested later. Okay, book the PC from campus. Okay, Aspen Hydraulic. Okay, see here hydrate formation, how it can be inhibited, pigging operation. That means we have a slugging, terrain induced slugging dynamic. Okay, of course we're talking about multi-phase flow over here. So okay, I get problem with my license. So this kind of thing can be predicted to some degree. Pipeline, and then we define must be this is the well, and with the certain composition, okay, with a certain composition. So a lot of light compounds, methane, but there must be a lot of heavy compound as well that will be the slug, right? So yeah, maybe I'll just give you some introduction that it can be done later using HYSYS if we really need to perform this kind of operation. And last time we only talk about steady state operation. Okay, now it's able also to perform dynamic operation. Dynamic means it's a function of time. See over here, this is a function of time. So yeah, but again, this is not common to be explained in undergrad. Okay, even in other countries. Okay, I haven't found any chemical engineering undergrad that explain about this kind of dynamic. Maybe in master degree and so on. Okay, maybe that's where the dynamic operation will be explained a bit further. Okay, what else like that? Yep, so maybe at least what I would like you to understand is understand the variables, right? So understand the variables, and then later, if you end up with this kind of application later, you know what's the variable that has to be manipulated and so on. Okay, so the gas volumetric flow, that's obviously in cubic meter per time. Okay, so it could be cubic meter per second, it could be cubic meter per hour. Okay, see the subscript. Okay, the subscript is G, so it's dedicated only for the gas compound. So that's the key in the simulation or in the calculation. If you know the Q, overall Q of the fit, then you still have to separate out of all those QG and QF. Out of all those Q, how can you split them into QG and QL? Why? Because again, remember the phase. The gas and the liquid could be found in different parts of the pipeline, which could be found in the different velocity of the pipeline. Okay, so QG and QL, it's just a cubic meter per hour or cubic meter per second liquid volumetric flow rate, only separate specifically for gas and liquid. Okay, let me check in here. Okay, here. Okay, you can see. The good thing about simulation is you specify the mole fraction of the mixed compound, right? And then based on the thermodynamics correlation that they have over here, they will be able to predict what will be the phase composition only in the vapor phase. Obviously, the methane will be dominant in the vapor phase. Okay, and then what is the composition strictly for the liquid phase for this mixed flow? Okay, there will be still some methane, 90% something, but the other will be the heavier compounds. Okay, and in doing so, this kind of software will be able to separate the flow rate as well. Okay, so if I talk about volumetric flow rate velocity previously, this is the example. Between this 12,800 barrel per day of mixed component, the liquid will be around 8,500 barrel per day, and or even three phase. Okay, I forgot this one. Aqueous phase is the water. Okay, it's split it into three phase. So by using this kind of example, I hope you can get the idea much faster. Okay, that's the gas volumetric flow rate. That's only for the pure gas part. Liquid volumetric flow rate, that's only for the liquid part. So sometimes the water will be separated even further between the organic or the hydrocarbon liquid and the water. Aqueous, water is the aqueous part. We need the composition or the amount of this to be able to calculate incomplete. Okay. And then superficial gas velocity. Are you familiar with the concept of superficial velocity? Has it been taught in any other courses? velocity mean meter per second. Okay, but what does superficial means? Any idea?
So the flow rate divided by the area.
Okay. So area is one thing. Okay. So it's of course it's affected by the area. Okay. So how is the correlation between cubic meter per hour or cubic meter per second? Okay, let me change to cubic meter per second to make it consistent. Cubic meter per second, how can I convert it to meter per second? Okay, of course you will divide by area, square meter, right? You have to divide by square meter, then you get your velocity. Okay, divided by area, and area for a pipeline, a cylindrical pipeline would be phi d square per 4. Okay, phi d square per 4. Okay, so that explain the conversion from volume to velocity. But what does superficial means? Superficial. What does superficial velocity means? Not what does superficial means. So it's actually about the void fraction or the porosity. Okay, it's about the void fraction or the porosity. It relates. Okay, it relates. It relates with the void fraction. So if anything is expressed as superficial velocity, okay, that means we assume the pipeline is completely porous. Okay, we assume that the pipeline is completely porous or completely void. Okay, so for superficial, we assume that Vf is equal to 1. That's the assumption. And that may not always be the case for all of this application. Okay, what's the example? Okay, again, I already give you example about absorption. So I still want to connect using the same example. Okay, absorption. We have a gas, we have a liquid. This is called as a packing. Okay, packing. Rashik ring, Paul ring, structure packing. Okay, a metal that is installed inside of the column to increase the contact area between the liquid and the gas. Okay, but the problem with that is now we don't have void fraction is not equal to 1 anymore. Okay, now if we install this kind of packing, the void fraction is not 1. Okay, why? Because a lot of this vessel now will be installed by a lot of small metals, the packing one that is used to increase the contact between the contact area between the liquid and vapor. Okay, because if it's a empty vessel, if it's a empty column, there is a tendency that the liquid and the vapor will not distributely contact it. Okay, so now if we have this kind of packing, of course the liquid will find a way to actually go to the top. Okay, it cannot go to where the packing is blocking the stream. Okay, same thing with the liquid from the top. They must find some channel, they must find some space where it can flow. Okay, so that's the big difference between superficial velocity and the actual velocity. Okay, so if it's an actual velocity, they will calculate the meter per second at actual vapor fraction. So in this case, if it's a fixed bed, let's say the vapor fraction is 0.4. That means 40% of the column is filled by packing. Hold on. No, 35 porous. Yeah, correct. Yeah, just to make sure that I give you correct information. The void fraction or the porosity of a fixed bed, let's say it's stated as 0.4. That means 40% of this absorber vessel volume is filled by packing that cannot be that cannot be used actually for flow for the gas to flow. Okay, so when it's measured as meter per second, it is measured meter per second at the actual channel that is filled by this packing. Okay, but for some fluid mechanical calculation, it is more useful to link or to calculate based on the superficial velocity. Okay, so when superficial velocity, that means it is assumed what if the gas and what if the liquid is flow to the same vessel, but if it's completely empty, it's not filled by anything. That means the void fraction now become 1. That means all segment of the pipeline, all segment of the column can be used for flow purpose. So that's the big difference. Okay, so yeah, cross section. Yeah, we talked about cross section before. That's the cross section for a cylindrical pipeline. Gas density, liquid density, only specific for the density. Okay, so again, I use the HYSYS example just to give you an idea. What does it mean by the gas density and liquid density? If I go to properties over here, and then I find my density. Okay, so I have 4 different density. See over here, mass density. I have 4 different density. For me, the most important one are the 3 vapor, liquid, and aqueous phase. This 17 doesn't mean much for me. Okay, why? Because it's not clear what does 17 pound per cubic feet means. Because we know for sure that this is actually a 3-phase. So it's just an average. Okay, it's just an average of the all compounds of the density. What we can measure, okay, what we can measure directly in the laboratory using pycnometer, using any other measurement for density, is the contributing phase in this mixed phase. Okay, we can directly measure in laboratory the mass density only for the vapor phase. That can be done straightforward. We can measure the mass density of the liquid phase. That can be done straightforward. That means only the density for the liquid part, hydrocarbon. We can measure the density of the aqueous phase, and the aqueous phase, if you remember, that this is a water. Okay, aqueous phase here, this is a water. So it means the meaning, the measurement is very straightforward, specific for specific phase. Okay, so when we express as a mass density, overall density, it may mean yeah, it's just a number of the average of everything that you can find in this pipeline, but doesn't mean much because it's not measured directly. It must be calculated. Okay, so just see the subscript. Okay, just see the subscript. Which phase are you required to provide the density? If you're still calculating the gas part, of course you provide the pure gas density. If you still calculate the liquid part of the pipeline, then you provide the liquid density part. Okay, so based on this variable, now we can define the many mathematical equation that is used to determine the phase, to determine the regime, and to determine the pressure drop. Any question?
Sorry, I have a question.
Yeah.
So we have the gas volumetric flow and the liquid volumetric flow, right? So if let's say I'm in a plant, how do I measure those, or are they calculated?
In the plan, of course, you install a flow meter.
Is it possible to measure each individual phase inside of one pipe?
Yes, because it's also well, of course, you use your mass balance knowledge as well. Okay, so a lot. It's a good question again, and we have to make sure. Okay, how can we measure as accurate as we can, right? So what we have as a two-phase flow over here is in this first pipeline. Okay. So now the question is, if I use a flow meter, okay, so let me put it as FM, okay, flow meter, what will be measured at this condition? Can it measure the flow meter of the gas? Can it measure the flow meter of the liquid? Can it measure the flow meter of the other phases? Okay, so what may happen if you still end up with collecting this pipeline is you collect a sample. Okay, first you collect a sample. You collect a sample to the lab. Okay, you collect a sample to the lab, and then in the lab you separate all those 2 or 3 phases. Okay, so it's not online. That's my message. First option is it's indirect measurement. So you collect a sample and then you separate the pure liquid, you separate the pure gas. You measure the amount, you measure the properties of each pure phases. That's possible. Okay, if it's done not online, offline in the lab, or for measurement purpose, of course, you can also propose to have different measurement points. Okay, so which could be, well, of course, everything has a pros and cons. Okay. In the second option, you have a flow meter at the liquid outlet and the flow meter at the vapor outlet. Okay. What's the benefit? The benefit, it's online. Now you're very certain that I will only get the flow meter of my vapor at the FM2. Okay. And then in FM3, I will only measure my liquid phase. Okay. It can be explained very straightforward. Okay. The drawbacks, of course, is the money, the investment. Okay. But if we're working with a rich company, then maybe it's not a problem. Just propose to use this flow meter measurement directly in both phases. Now you don't need this one, because now it's a matter of mass balance, right? You use the information from the downstream, then use a calculator or use a PLC programming, then now the front part become a calculated variable based on the measurement at the downstream. But if it's too expensive, then I guess your option is to collect a sampling manually and then measure periodically in the lab. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Any other question? Okay, let me see. Okay, I almost. Okay, so maybe I'll just use this final 5 minutes to explain again the variables in gas liquid to phase flow. Previously, I already talked about the Q. That's the volumetric flow rate. Okay. So of course, when you divide by the pipeline area, the A, you get the average velocity, linear velocity, meter per second. Okay. And if you remember the regime phase map that I show in to answer your question before, it's expressed as flux. Okay, so it's simply you simply has to multiply by the density. You simply has to multiply by the density, so it becomes kilogram per square meter second. Okay, and this one is what is used as the most of the regime map. Okay? Kilogram per second square meter. So simply multiply the linear velocity with the density. Linear velocity with the density. Okay. And there are also some ratio, some factor, correction factors, lambda, okay, which is the ratio of density of the gas, multiply the density of the liquid, that's the density of water. Okay, I have to make sure this one, it seems odd because the subscript is A. Okay, okay, let me double check and get back to you on Tuesday. Because commonly we express as liquid, gas, and water in this three phase. Oh, it's air. Okay, sorry, that's air. That's the reference point. So it's like a specific gravity. If you would like to have some analogy, okay, because it's a density of a gas divided by the density of air. It's like a specific gravity for the gas part. And this one is a specific gravity for the liquid part because it's divided by the water. Okay, so again, rho, I think it's quite straightforward. This is a density measured separately as each pure phase. And this is the surface tension, which has correlation with the viscosity. Okay, and alpha is an area fraction, which is area occupied by the gas compared to area occupied by the overall pipeline. Okay, so if previously it was stated as a slugging flow, okay, so the vapor part only at the top. So alpha or the AG is, so this is the part that you consider as part of the AG because this is filled by gas. Okay, and the other overall, that's the A. Okay, and of course AL will be 1 minus alpha. Okay, gas quality, it's like vapor fraction in mass basis. Okay, omega or gas quality, it is a vapor fraction but in mass basis instead of in mole basis. Okay, vapor mass fraction, maybe that's a good word. Vapor mass fraction. Mass fraction simply divide the gas mass flow rate divided by the total mass rate. Okay, then you get your omega. It is used in a lot of empirical equation that will be explained later on Tuesday. Okay, so I already give the clue that all of these are empirical equations because almost impossible to be derived analytically because of the complexity that we talk for today. That's why most of them are coming from experiment, and then it's measured, and then it's plotted as a trend, regressed, and then they get the empirical equation. Okay, of course, because this is a mass balance, then if you have a gas liquid flow, the sum of gas mass rate plus the liquid gas rate will be the overall mass flow. And if it's a flux, then divided by the area. Superficial velocity, again, remember the assumption here is it's corrected by the alpha. It's corrected by the alpha, and if you remember that it's almost equivalent to the void fraction or the porosity that I explained in the absorber, filled by the particle. So in this one, maybe one illustration is if you have an actual your actual pipeline look like this, that's Vg, that's Vl. If you put a flow meter, then the measurement will be directly specific only for the area filled by gas. Okay, so the Vg will only be measured at the actual velocity because the area used by the gas is the one that I give some pattern. Okay, because some of the other parts of the pipeline is used for liquid. Okay, so in superficial measurement, okay, superficial, it is a hypothetical velocity if the same amount of gas now is flowed in the same size of pipeline, but all of the segment, all of the area are free of liquid, are free of particle. So now that's the, in previous part, this is the AG, right? Area of the pipeline only specific for gas. Now the AG is equal to A over here. For superficial, the AG is equal to A because it is assumed that the void fraction is 1. It is assumed that there is no particle, there is no liquid that blocks the gas flow. Okay. So that's the examples or the illustrations. And the same thing with the superficial for liquid. Now it is assumed that liquid can use all the area in the pipeline. So in this case, the AL will be equal to A. That's what it means as a superficial gas and superficial liquid. Okay, I think this is the end of my explanation for today. If you have any question, please, before I conclude the session and continue on Tuesday. Any question? Okay, I think that's it for today. So see you on Tuesday. Okay, the last section before your next exam.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.